Hey everybody! Hey, it's Saul. It's me. It's your friend from the internet. I'm really excited today. As you guys know, I don't know, maybe like a year. I've been doing podcasts for probably about a year. Got about 40 or so episodes in the bank. Missed a couple weeks, but other than that, trying to keep a pretty regular schedule. And it's great to do podcasts when because the really the only reason I do podcasts is it gives me a reason to sit down for a long conversation with people I either am friends with, admire, or really want to get to know a little better. And today's no different, but today is a little different in some respect because we're doing this for the first time on Facebook Live. So we will actually be pushing this through our podcast feed after, but the world is changing and we're changing with it, and everyone's living on video chats and things like that. So I thought this was a really good opportunity to do something a little different and fun. So today, holy mackerel, am I excited for this one. Jessie Frampton is my guest, and Jessie is the co-founder of Fuzz Wax Bar. For those of you watching, you can see the URL and contact information below. If you're not, if you're on the podcast, just search them up. It's you're gonna be blown away by this conversation, or at least I hope you're gonna be blown away. So Jessie, thank you for doing this. Please say hello.
Hi, thank you. I was flattered when you reached out to me to do this. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So you and I are we're almost best friends. So I know the story of how your company was started. But for other people who are just maybe learning about you and for the first time, tell the story of how Fuzz Wax Bar started and how you found your co-founder.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the long version because
okay, we've got time.
Mm-hmm. So 2011, going back, wow. So prior to this, I went to school for a couple different things. I went to school for fashion. I went to school for events and tourism. I didn't like any of them, so I found myself doing freelance work, both with fashion and with event planning, and it was really random, but I was creating my own schedule, to say the least. So on one of those days, I was vintage clothing shopping at a very popular shop that we all know, Value Village. And I randomly walked up to this girl and I asked her opinion on a sweater. I literally stopped her in her tracks and I said, "Hey, what do you think of this sweater?" And I have to tell you, I've never done this since then or before that day. So she clearly looked at me like I was a weirdo, and she kind of was a little thrown aback by it. So I said, "You know what? Don't worry about it. This is awkward. I'm going to keep on going." So I went on my way. About 7-10 minutes later, she reapproached me and she said, "Well, hey, did you end up getting that sweater?" I'm like, "Okay, well, I didn't creep her out that much." She came back. That's good. And then I'm like you said, it's $7. I'm going to grab it. So after talking to her, I picked up on her accent and I asked where she was from, and she told me that she was from, she literally just came to Toronto with her then boyfriend, now husband, from Norway. So kind of being like the kind Canadian, we all do this, I offered to show her around the city. My partner at the time was in the same industry. I said, maybe I could link you up with some contacts to help you get some work. Absolutely not thinking she would take me up on this offer. Like, we throw this out, but nobody ever actually takes you up on the offer. Sure enough, the next morning, I get a text, and she said about that coffee. So we ended up meeting up pretty routinely. I took her to some popular Toronto and city events. We hung out. And then what happened was that winter, she was going back home to the south of France, where she's from. And she asked me where to go for a wax before she goes on her holiday. So at the time, I mean, like I said, this was like 2011. At the time, I was waxing for 14 years. So I knew where to go for a wax in the city. But the truth is, I wasn't happy with it. It was either really expensive, or the other alternative was like a sketchy nail bar. So she told me, "You know what, don't worry about it. I'll just get my wax when I go home." So she went home for her holiday. When she got back, obviously being two girls, I asked if she ended up getting her wax, and she told me about a very popular concept in Europe, which was a waxing only salon. So having been clients of the industry, her as well, at the time she was waxing for about 14 years, both of us were clients of the industry, we were like, this is interesting. So it's kind of, we did a little bit of market research and we realized that it's kind of the go-to in Europe, but it's also exploding in the US, and it was starting to catch on in the West Coast of Canada. And this was at a time when, you know, the brow bars, the nail bars, the lash extension bars, all these kind of bar niche beauty concepts were starting to pop up everywhere, but there was no wax bar, which was really interesting. So it's not every day you get to start a kind of a cool concept. And like I said, I was doing freelance, and my co-founder Flo was doing freelance. She was actually in the film and television industry. I don't think I mentioned that. And we kind of put our heads together and we're like, let's make it our mission to open up Toronto's first waxing only salon. Like, why not? I mean, I was 23 going on 24 at the time, and she was a couple years ahead of me. And we were just like, sure, this sounds like a great idea. So we ended up meeting pretty routinely. Definitely having our freelance work allowed us to kind of create a schedule that complemented each other. We would meet at the same local coffee shop every single morning, did extensive research on everything there is about waxing, because we're both not aesthetics or estheticians or have aesthetics backgrounds, and none of us had business experience. So we spent a solid 8 months doing aggressive market research on all things waxing. And then 8 months later, we had this fully packaged brand. And then we're like, obviously, okay, well, now what? Now what do we do now that we have this brand? So no banks would look at us. No one would give us any credit. Obviously, we're young. They didn't want anything to do with us. So we started scratching at our friends and family for some cash to get it started. And so we ended up coming up with a $50,000. Just for comparison, a Fuzz doesn't open for anything less than $300K now. But we gave a whole new meaning to blood, sweat, and tears. So we primed, we painted, we basically did more than 50% of the construction. And we successfully opened up Toronto's first waxing-only salon on Queen Street West in 2012.
So that's very cool. So I have like 100 ideas a day.
Yeah.
How did you guys know this was the one that you actually go all in on?
It's so funny because when people ask me that question, I'm like, I try to go back to the feelings. I gotta say, it's like that young, don't give a shit mentality. I have to say that definitely.
You can say whatever you want here.
It's like you have less fear, I think. Like I was definitely a lot less, I want to give myself more credit. The entrepreneurial spirit lived inside of me forever. No, it was definitely something that I think both of us, having been clients, it's kind of that whole typical find a need and fill it kind of mentality, where we both resonated with the need for this concept so passionately that we're like, it just kind of made sense to us. But don't get me wrong, within that 8 months of market research, we spent a lot of time convincing people of the concept. So we're like, we're opening up Toronto's first waxing only salon, Wax Bar. And they're like, what, do you get a drink? Do you get a drink with your wax? Like, how does it work? We're like, no, it's just a wax bar. You come in, you get your wax, you leave. And we had to sell so many people on the concept. But like many ideas that people are passionate about, our passion sold the concept, and people really came on board. And I gotta mention, aside from opening up Toronto's first waxing only salon, we actually created a membership model to kind of encourage our clients to do routine waxing, because that's, without getting into it unless you want to, that's how you get the full benefits of waxing. So we were also North America's first, beauty salon that actually had a membership tied to what they were doing. And that took off. So I'm happy to share we saw immediate success right after opening up our doors.
So the subscription model is really fascinating. So I did a lot of research for this interview because I didn't want to get it wrong. And one of the things that I really noticed right away was the subscription model. I think it's brilliant because not only does it, like you said, encourage routine and everything like that, but it also allows you a little bit of predictable revenue. So, did you launch right away with the subscription model? Was it trial and error? Was there people giving you a little pushback at the beginning, or just where did it come from? Because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, so it definitely started when we opened up our doors. We had the memberships. It was one of those, like I said, Fuzz is a very client-centric model. So as clients of the industry, we kind of handpicked what we wanted to see in it, which is kind of the advantage. So we were like, okay, we want fast, affordable, convenient service, fair pricing, all that fun stuff, high quality, in a clean space. But now what's going to motivate clients to come back? What would motivate us to come back for a service that's typically known as being very uncomfortable? So memberships were actually something that were happening in Europe, but on a very different level. We really westernized, I guess you would say. We've kind of changed the concept to accommodate what people would be more familiar with here, but it was definitely, it made sense to us the minute we started developing the brand and we launched with memberships. We sold our first membership on the first day of opening. It just kind of, so I'll tell you the back end to that. So with hair removal, so hair grows on a 4-week cycle. Memberships come out on a 4-week cycle. So it's kind of like, it's not only your reminder to get your wax, but it's kind of like your reminder to like come in because you paid for it, right? So we have memberships. In some of those memberships, obviously your services included. So that's the one I'm referring to. So it just kind of made sense to us as clients, and we launched with it. And I mean, pre-COVID, we had over 10,000 members between our Toronto locations. It's always been a part of us, and it's helped fuel a massive community of avid waxers.
That's very cool. So there's a business theory. I don't know what it's called, but the theory is basically you go 1,000 miles wide and 2 feet deep, or go 2 feet wide and 1,000 miles deep. You can play with the numbers however you want, but basically the theory is you either be really broad and not very much of a subject matter expert, or be very narrow in what you do and be the best in the world. And this is where I make this about me, because we're going to talk about you a whole lot, Jessie, but my ego needs to be fed a little bit too. So I designed my career to always try to be the best in the world at a very small skill set. So maybe I'm not going to be able to help everybody, but if you need what I offer, there's no one better, and I should be top of mind. It seems like that's, whether consciously or subconsciously, that's what you guys decided to do. Was it always the plan to just do one thing really well, or was it, let's start here and then eventually we'll go, plus, 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 plus?
It was always right from the beginning. It was very important for us to do one thing. And again, when I said I had to sell people on the concept, a huge aspect of that I missed was people would always say, but you're not going to do nails? We're like, absolutely not. We're not going to do nails, just waxing. So we think that there's priding ourselves on being the professionals was a huge key successor for us. So we, similar to yourself, like we wanted to do one thing and one thing only, so we could claim expertise in something that, quite frankly, we would get the service done, but we were no experts ourselves. So we wanted to make sure that we were hyper focused on that one service. So always, since the day we opened up our doors, as much as the feedback has always been, are you ever going to do nails or something else? Or we're like, no, just waxing. I mean, that said, we're 2 young female founders, right? So we're constantly innovating, and I don't want to say we always stay outside of our box, but we're always doing R&D. So if there's something that made sense to the model or the brand, I mean, we definitely consider it. But it's always been our core focus to do one thing and have that focus on just waxing.
All right. So what was scarier? If you think of the 3 main milestones, there's probably been 100 milestones of your business, but as an outsider, the most obvious ones to me would be opening your first location, opening your second location, or opening your first franchise location. Because I imagine each one took something, a very different mindset. Your first location was just like, it's like, fuck, we're going to do this and no one's going to tell us we can't do it. Second one is like, oh my God, we're adding way more people to the payroll. And franchise is like, well, now we have a child that we need to worry about that isn't, or we're adopting somebody who's not like blood or whatever. So what sort of, what was scarier out of those 3, and or are they even similar? Or are they all completely different?
Yeah. So when we first opened, fear was non-existent for Flo and I. Like we did it, and we were so passionate and so happy. So I don't want to say there's no fear attached to that first location. Second location, I think we were spoiled with success from our first location that we could easily kind of bank fund on our own, our second location, within 6 months. So the fear, again, for our second location wasn't really there. It was a bit of a no-brainer because we always built it on wanting to build multiples, never just one mom and pop wax shop. We always knew. And also to complement our membership system, you have to have multiple locations. So the fear within the first and the second location, I gotta say it was kind of non-existent. Franchising, a whole different beast. So we decided, we always knew we wanted to franchise. And in 2015, actually, is when we said, okay, let's take the legal steps necessary to be a franchise brand. So we started kind of talking to lawyers and consultants and kind of getting knee deep in all things franchising. But then we quickly realized This is nothing like the corporate structure that we were used to. And we had quite a few locations under our belt at that point. So we took some time off. So we took from 2015 to 2018 completely off and got educated in all things franchising, because we wanted to be franchisors that knew what they were doing for our potential franchisees coming into the system. But there's actually a cute story on how we brought on our first franchisee, which I'll share with you, because
Please do.
Yeah, because I think that also eliminated my fears. I'm like, oh, why am I not fearful with anything you're asking? But so way back in the day, I worked at a modeling agency. And I guess my boss, so I would do the admin stuff for the studio lead. I guess she would just do the bookings and stuff for the models. So I was like the front desk reception. So I worked there for a couple years. And one day I was like, you know what? I got to quit. I got to quit all my side jobs, all my side projects, because I'm opening up Toronto's first wax bar. And she was like, okay, cool. Good luck. Young, didn't give a shit. Quit my jobs, all of them. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So I opened up Fuzz on Queen with Flo. And then my boss, Dawn from the modeling agency, kind of followed my success. And she's like, oh, okay, this is good for you. Congratulations. And then about a year after opening, she went on maternity leave to have her second baby. And when she came back after her maternity leave, she's like, I'd love to work at Fuzz. And having kind of worked under her, I knew she was an incredible candidate, a really great manager. So we hired her to manage one of our locations. So after watching us from the front end and then learning about the back end of the business from working in it with me, she fell in love. And it was a bit of a no-brainer. She made it her mission to be our first franchisee. So she actually came on 2000, I don't want to get my dates mixed up, but I want to say 2019. I'm probably wrong there. But when she came on, I think that eliminated the fear, because I knew her. And the biggest gamble with franchisees, it's a personality that you're going into business with that you don't know this individual. So you're trying to, it's like speed dating. You're trying to get to know them as much as you can in this very, very quick period of time. But with Dawn, our first franchisee, I had a long-term history with her, which kind of made me very confident in bringing her into the system. So no fear, no fear. But I got to say, with other franchisees after Dawn, to your point, super scary. I mean, franchising, we're all in it for the long game together, and definitely separating the corporate experiences with, now someone else's success is in our hands. And I think that's where I feel more of like the empathetic kind of nerves is we have to do everything we can to not only ensure our success, which, is cool, but now to ensure someone else's success. Like, people put their all into it with franchising, right?
So I don't know a whole lot about franchising, so I'm not going to pretend that I'm a subject matter expert or anything, but I do know a whole lot about branding.
Yeah.
So I think franchising, well, first of all, let me ask you, just to tag on to what you said. Is there anything you're afraid of besides, like, maybe me? Like, is there anything you're afraid of?
Like in the world, like anything?
Yeah, like you seem rather fearless. Like I'm afraid of mannequins. So I don't like I can.
Oh, you're one of
Yeah, they just weird me out. I am. Anyways, is there anything you're afraid of?
That's such a tough question. You're really putting me on the spot with that. Is there? I'm sure there's something, but I think that fear, without getting too deep and spiritual, I truly and genuinely feel like it's a bit of an interpretation. It's like the questions that actually, my most hated question is in like entrepreneurial life is, what's your biggest challenge? And I feel like all challenges are, again, interpretations of, it's how you take it. For me, they weren't challenges, they were learnings and lessons. And I think that's the same with fear. It's all your interpretation of it. I mean, I'm sure I'm afraid of something. I don't want to act like I'm a fearless beast over here, but I'll have to sit on that. Jeez. I mean, other than like the scary things like dying and stuff, I don't know.
All right. So I would imagine the scariest part of franchising is like picking the wrong like franchisee, because like, it's not like your Subway where like people have a bad experience. They're just like, oh, well, it's Subway. Like, you guys have really put, like you said, blood, sweat, and tears, and not only your business, but your brand and things like that. And like, when you do sort of hand the keys over to someone else, you can't control everything. And part of being a great business person is empowering people and trusting people. But man, it's hard sometimes.
It's stupid. You're nailing it. So the good thing about how Flo and I sort of structured the business is that not knowing the aesthetics aspect of it, the business aspect, we kind of like structured to the point of slightly over structuring. So there's a policy, a practice, and a system in place for everything. So for people that don't know the system, it's easy for them to follow. And then, I mean, accompanied with our like pretty intense support that we have here at Fuzz, you're in good hands. So what we put focus on is the values in an individual. So basically our interview process for coming into the system is not really about the business experience or your love for waxing. Like I've never waxed a human in my life. I mean, I tried waxing my sister for the first time in my 8-year waxing career about a couple weeks ago. Brave soul, but she let me do it and I was good. But anyways, yeah, so we put a lot of emphasis on values. So at the end of the day, all of our decisions are made from a value perspective, right? So if our values aren't aligned with our franchisees, there's going to be this pretty deep friction. So a huge one, and without getting too into our values, there's a lot of them, is something we're passionate about is, you know, putting people first. So you might think that you want someone to come into the system that's sort of like a workhorse and is going to drive it and make profits, but we're kind of not looking for that individual. We're looking for people that are going to spend more time on, you know, their people and giving back and creating a purpose-driven organization. So I think it makes hiring from a value perspective ultra important because of all those things you're saying. It's super risky and super scary to bring people into a system, but if your values are aligned, I think it makes that really hard process a little bit easier, because when you are making those difficult or even daily decisions, you're aligned on your way of thinking, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you you don't have a formal business background, and I kind of love that for a couple of reasons. One, I love the fact you're being honest about it, where a lot of people would kind of bullshit and hide and tiptoe around that. The other thing is I kind of love it is I'm very similar. I've been very honest with people that I did not have a formal marketing training. I worked in a family business. I kind of learned everything, you know, by sort of sitting next to my dad. And then I started my own companies, and I kind of developed my own formulas and structures and things by trial and error and you know, a few costly mistakes and things. But I also think that that's what makes me amazing, because I'm, you know, none of my work is derivative. I don't, you know, I don't follow the best practices that people follow. I know everything, as I've read every book you could imagine, and I've taught myself, and I can, you know, I know all the bullshit, you know, acronyms and stuff like that. And I can bullshit my way through MBA students and things like that. But I really think the thing that makes me so unique and different is I don't think like people who are classically trained. Do you feel that your informal training has been a benefit, or has it held you back in some ways?
Yeah, so I think it's happened in stages. So I was very lucky when I met Flo. Our I guess skill set or our personalities are completely different. Flo was naturally, as we developed the brand and then even moving into the brand, she is very admin, operations, finance driven, and I kind of naturally fell into the more design, PR, branding aspect of everything, the corporate culture, all that stuff. So there was never friction with her, which I think was really good, but also she was not nearly as good as the things I was good at, and vice versa. So I kind of had to become my own validator, if that makes sense. I couldn't look to Flo to validate my random crazy ideas, because she was in such a different, I swear she just uses a completely different part of her brain. So there was, I think I had to do everything on it, like intuition, if that makes sense. And I don't know, I got like all my intuition, all my calls. I'd wake up one day and just, you know, it's time to upgrade the brand, or it's time to do this, or I don't know where it freaking comes from. But I think now in my career, I think there's something really special about a founder intuition that goes into making these huge judgment calls. And it's kind of allowed me to be an expert in my field. And I don't know, I feel like it hasn't hindered my success. I mean, there's something to be said about being the boss. It's kind of like your way or the highways. So I think Flo has complemented that. She's allowed me to kind of step into my craft without there's never been a battle. So if I want to change the brand, or if I want to do any upgrades, she has my back, and kind of vice versa. So I think it's having the support of a partner to kind of let you have that creative freedom. And then also, you know, respecting that freedom and praising you for that freedom or it's good. I don't know. It's never hindered my success up until now. I don't claim to be an expert at all, and I'll totally admit to like fucking winging everything my whole life. I do think that I think some people are just, I know it's going to sound super cheesy. I think some people are genuinely just born with it. And I think passion to this inner craft that you didn't even know you had, it's a magical combination of skill.
So we're similar and different. I claim to be an expert in everything that I claim to be, even with, well, I can say I'm an expert. People have validated me, but I guess just we approach things a little different.
Yeah, I've always, I mean, I'm making decisions, and I don't go back on my decisions. I feel very comfortable, confident making those calls, but I'm always open. It's my way, but I'll never claim it to be the best way. I think there's always, there's always room for growth and different ideas. And I love dragging my team into my crazy ideas and getting their opinion. And I crave that. I crave someone to challenge my ideas and kind of fight with me. Actually, for many years, I didn't have that battle. I didn't have that fight. Flo, again, if she was here, you'd see right off the bat how different we are. She's more passive. So I've never had that person to kind of give me that freaking crack head. So I've kind of owned my ideas, but I love it. I love the challenge. I love when people challenge my ideas.
No, me too. This is where I make it about me for about 10 seconds again. I built the original brand for FreshBooks, the online invoicing platform. I was the first marketing hire there, 2007, and the brand has changed. It's far more enterprisey and things, but the early days, the brand was just so unique and different, and people always asked how I built it, where it came from, and I told them that I really built it around my personality, because at the time I was very aligned and similar to the people using the product, and it was just very natural to leave things in my voice and create this club instead of a business or something like that. How much of you is in the brand of Fuzz Wax Bar?
A lot of it. A lot of it. It was to the point where the voice was almost like I had to. It's hard. It's till this day, I can't lie. It's still heavily my voice. So, yeah, I have a huge part in the marketing. And Flo, I've always had to kind of sell her on the ideas, and I bring her along for the ride, but I feel like she's done such a good job of allowing me to kind of take center stage that way. In terms of our alignment, with all the things that are like the brand, she's totally aligned with that, but the brand has always definitely been my voice, and I'm trying to and you can't train that or like give that off. That said, I love it. Like I love being a brand voice, right? I think it takes me away from other areas of my personal growth that I should be focusing on, but I'm going to hold on to that as long as possible, I think.
All right, good. So Fuzz Wax Bar is a very talkable business, and what I mean by that is like you guys are doing waxing. You do it for men, you do it for women. There's a little bit of like salaciousness in the idea. I'm sure there's a little bit of blushing and things like that when people talk about getting waxed and things like that. Not with you and me, we're mature adults, but other people. Do you guys consciously think of word of mouth, or is it just something that's happened very naturally just by the nature of what you do?
Absolutely. So when we opened, even right down to developing the name, we wanted something that was going to stop people and get them thinking. So it made sense to me. I was like Fuzz, and also there was so many other names, and I just wanted to really stand out from the crowd. I knew it was an idea that sure we were the first, but it would catch on quickly. So funny fact, Fuzz actually doesn't translate in French. So Fuzz Flo was like, this makes no sense. She's like, Fuzz, like in French, she's from the south of France. It doesn't make sense to her. So I was like, no, Fuzz, trust me. And the minute we opened up our doors, people would walk and laugh and say Fuzz. And then I think it was up to us when they walk in to kind of be professional about it at that point. So we always kind of played with the balance of being like kitschy and having fun, but never having too much fun to the point where we want to take intimate services seriously. So 100%, it's always been that fine line, and we've always had to correct people too. Like when they walk in and they're like Fuzz and they're laughing about it, we're going to educate them in response. We're not going to laugh with them, if that makes sense. So it's definitely been this back and forth. We wanted to start out having a little bit more fun and then quickly kind of matured the brand a little bit. I think we're at a good balance now, but when we opened, for sure, people wanted to have a lot of fun with our brand name.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of brand names, you guys have, I don't know if this is an exclusive thing or what, but you do vajacials. I might not be pronouncing it properly. What is that? And can I get one? I assume not.
So it's a bee facial.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a facial for your vulva. So for girls, not yet guys, but do you think that would be popular? Do you think we should launch that or what?
Well, it would take a certain gentleman who's very comfortable with his body and masculinity to sit for such a procedure, but you never know. It's like it doesn't hurt to ask.
So that's at Fuzz, that's really the only treatment that we have outside of waxing. And really it was the innovation from that, why we evolved into having that service is because it was a need. But when you're waxing regularly, we listened to our clients, there was, ingrowns and irritation and people suffering from acne. And it really complements a regular waxing routine. So yes, we have the V facial, and it's a facial for, down below, and it's actually quite popular. And if you mull that over, if you tell me, brand expert, that you think that, guys would dig it, I'd love to come up with a male version of it. We have a ton of men that wax, and I remember that. So I've always played with it. I'm like, would a guy sit through this? I don't know.
Well, I think they would, but it's all how you market it.
Yeah.
So as an outsider looking, into your brand and paying attention to you, because I'm fascinated by you. What, everything that sort of happened with COVID, starting 2 months ago, obviously I don't have like the behind the scenes stuff, and you don't have to share the behind the scenes stuff, but outwardly, it seemed like you guys handled it really, as close to perfect as you could. There was clear communications. You kept your staff close, through Instagram stories. I saw you guys were doing trivia nights and painting things. Maybe the painting I'm imagining. I think I saw something painting and things like that.
Yeah.
How has the last few months kind of been for you? Because I imagine it hasn't been easy.
Yeah. So it's crazy to say that it's been a couple months, huh? Like it's just all happened so fast. But when all of this was starting to happen, definitely top of mind was the safety of our clients. Then of course, in hand with that was the safety of our team. And it was all kind of, we were juggling all of it, but the hardest part, there was this kind of like global realization that everyone kind of did together. So you weren't the only one. So I think that kind of coddled the emotions of having to close down, to be honest. Everyone's closing. This is what everyone has to do. There was a sense of like relief that, okay, everyone's doing this and we're doing this together. And everyone's going through the same thing from an entrepreneurial business perspective. But the real hard part is the amount of like time and effort. And I'm sure there's branding, but what brings that brand to life is the corporate culture and the bodies behind that brand that you spend so much time, that I spend so much time on sort of masking, molding, and mentoring and coaching. So we have an incredible team here at Fuzz HQ. And the hardest part was definitely having to really talk realities. Like it's so weird. You're blessed with success, and then all of a sudden that can be taken away from you like overnight. And you can only kind of keep it going so long until you have to make that call to let everyone go. So when we had to do what we ended up doing temporary layoffs. So we didn't fully let everyone go, but definitely the hardest part was letting the team go. And these girls look to you, and you kind of it was the weirdest feeling to have to let everybody go. It was good to have a partner. I think what better time to have a partner to lean on, because I think we were both feeling the same feels. And then there was also some personal stuff that was going on that I don't have a problem sharing. It's like you realize how much you put in of yourself into your brand, into your business. And when you take that away, it's almost as, okay, let's step back into what really matters and kind of reprioritize the way things have been done in your personal life, because I realized that Fuzz and the brand and work was everything. Like you take your everything away and you're kind of left with this like empty, dark hole of nothingness. And you're just like, well, how do I fill this void, this hole? And for me, that's always been my team. I put my heart and my energy and my love into my team. So my team was gone. The brand was closed down. So it was this like really, I think that it's this really, if people do the work during this time, I think if you come out, it could be a really powerful evolution for some people. Like some real work can be done. So for me, it was definitely realizing that, you know, putting focus when we get through this on other things other than the business. Because, you know, 8 years can kind of go by like that. And then all of a sudden it can be taken away just like that as well. So that was kind of like the personal versus the business. But freaking scary as fuck. Like, come on. Like, what a time to be alive. Like, this has been nuts. But so me and Flo, I mean, business, I gotta say, we were like, it was so good to have a business partner during this crazy time and kind of lean on each other and feeling the exact same thing in terms of the not knowing. But I also feel, and I'm on a tangent, so you cut in anytime.
No, this is fascinating.
Yeah, but I also feel that as business owners, like you're kind of, another really hard thing was you're kind of you're a natural problem solver. So now you have this problem that no matter what you do, no matter how hard you think about it, you can't solve it. So there's this like internal frustration that no matter, there's nothing you can do for yourself, your team, your brand, and your business that is going to make this better. So it's like this real kind of frustrating, really weird feeling. I think it's weird is a really good interpretation, I think, of how a lot of people call it, mixed in with all the other stuff. But it's crazy. But the good thing is we kept our team engaged, to your point. We offered as much team building and, you know, I hate Zoom so much, but we offered a lot of Zoom fun and meetings and trivias and, you know, meditation nights and tried to keep that culture alive, tried to keep the corporate culture alive virtually, which we think we did pretty good. But there was a time when no matter what your efforts do, like no matter how much you give back virtually, everyone, you kind of felt them dying off a little bit more each week, which was really sad to see. It's like even the best ones were kind of just, you saw little parts of them dying, which that's when your entrepreneurial spirit kind of comes back to life and you're like, no, I need to be leaders for these individuals. And although you wanted to go into a sulk and a bit of a hard time, they're wanting to make them happy kind of got me out of it too. Like stepping back into that leadership role to be the best version of me for them because I was their only security outside of this, right? So Fuzz, we were their only security. So it's been freaking crazy. My gosh.
I like the way you interchange frickin' with fucking. It's you sometimes use the like it's like an exclamation point.
Potty mouth, yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you did a little soul searching. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but like, are you going to make any changes going forward personally? Or, you know, once sort of you get back in the routine, you're back in the routine. Cause that's how I am. Like I've enjoyed, you know, the slower pace like crazy. I miss airplanes. I used to be on a plane every like 10 days and be other places and have people pay for my food and things like that. But it's also just been like really nice to like be able to just work and stuff like that. I think I've been in my house too long. I hate all my art now and I want to like replace it all. And I'd like to, you know, move my house to something a little different. But I know myself once, like if the world returns to normal, I'm just going to fall back in the routine because that's what I know. And that's sort of where I thrive and is just like, you know, just work and, you know, just whatever. So are you going to make changes or you don't know?
I think the change, I think the realization, the change has been done. The change has been made. It's that realization internally that now that I'm aware, I can make as I see it and as I go. So I think that change is there because I've recognized a lot of things that I was doing. And then, yeah, I think I'll come back into it and I'll be equally as passionate and I'll kind of throw myself back into it. But I think there's always going to be this reminder of, you know, this can be taken away like that. And at the end of the day, when you're left with yourself and you put your brand top priority and you kind of made that as an excuse to not do certain things or, you know, not take the typical path in life, I think for sure, I think it's going to affect my decisions moving forward, for sure. But I have to say, I think that changed me. I think I did the work. I'm happy to say I sat with it and I lived through the emotions. So I'm like you. I'm so like we're back. We brought our team back. Our team's been back for I think this is week 2 or 3. So we're already back into it. But I'm also those slight corrections when I find myself slipping. I mean, I know that work has been made because I'm different. I'm slightly different, and I like it. I like the difference. I like the Jessie coming out of COVID, to be honest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I am. It's like you're looking over my shoulder at my notes. I wanted the next thing I want to talk about was that you brought your team back because, um, so many companies have gone through the exact same thing you've gone through. It's like it's sadly it's far from unique at this point. But one thing that you've done differently that a lot of people haven't is you've actually been able to bring them back. So the layoffs was like it was necessary and unfortunate, but you haven't left anybody sort of or I don't know. That's maybe not correct, but you brought your team back, which is amazing and something that you guys should be acknowledged. So what was it like to bring everyone back, and we've talked about kind of the last few months. What's the last like week been like?
Yeah, so it's been incredible bringing them back. I mean, that said, we kept them on as long as we possibly could until you literally work at the financials and you're like, we had a hard trouble mark. It's like you're in trouble. So we did the same thing. Now it's like we held on to them as long as possible and we brought them back as quickly as possible. So I got to say the government subsidy is definitely something that we applied for and it's helping us bring everyone back. So that's thank goodness for that. But it's actually been really great because remember that like kind of dark cycle the entire team was going through that we were all feeling? It's like, oh man, like what is corporate culture when you see your team just all kind of like fading? But everyone's back and it's beautiful because the work that we did pre-COVID is still there and everyone's just excited to get back to. I mean, you have to wheel them back into work mode. I think everybody is a little comfortable and got a little liked not working to a certain extent. So I mean, just keeping on them and motivating them and reminding them and the same goals that we had pre-COVID are the same goals that we have coming outside of COVID. So I think it's just kind of getting them back on board and back into the groove of things. But it feels so good to give people their jobs back. Like that's such a that warms my heart. It was a really good feeling.
All right, cool. So I do want to talk about your goals and plans going forward. Before we do, just sort of, put the bow on this whole COVID stuff. One thing you guys did do during COVID, which I thought was really interesting, was you created home kits for people to, give themselves either eyebrow or arm or whatever. And so I thought the home kits were really like a really interesting and smart move. But you also created a lot of really interesting content around how to do home waxing and things like that. Was the home kits always in the works, or was this something like that you rushed because of the situation, or just talk a little bit about the home kits? Because again, like I thought it was, if there was any way to, make a lemon out of COVID, that seemed to be it.
So at home wax kits, so another thing when we're talking about this whole what happened pre and post actually is really cool. Is we were actually at the peak of our growth before COVID. There was so much amazing stuff happening. We were going into the States, all this fun stuff. Anyways, bringing new franchisees into the system. But on that, because of that success that we're seeing and because of the success that we see through our doors every day, we put a lot of our and it takes a lot to cap my innovation and my ideas, but we put a lot of those great ideas on the back burner. So we kind of had this long list of really great innovative ideas that constantly kind of took back seat given to where we were going, kind of the steps we're moving forward every day. So we've always wanted to create an at-home wax kit. We envisioned it obviously being a little bit different, like not kind of putting it together here and what we have, but developing that with the chemist and, doing it the long way, but, I don't want to say the right way because there's no right way, but kind of having more of a play and kind of what that experience at home is like. So absolutely always a part of it. And one of the best things is I went through that kind of that dip where I was like, okay, this is crazy. And then like, okay, deep reflection. Okay, be here for my team. And then like it sprouted on like crazy innovation mode. Like my brain was just like when I was back, it was like, okay, what can we do? How can we do it better? I got really excited and it was all about bringing all those ideas that we would back burner kind of to the forefront now. And like what complements where we're at, and wax kits just made sense. And we're pros, right? So it's one thing to kind of go into shoppers and kind of be left alone, but I mean, we're doing Q&As, 20-minute Q&As where you talk to one of our physiologists so that you can get the lowdown on what to do with your kit once you have it at home. And this is high quality grade products and materials. So it made sense. We felt very comfortable. So I think I would never put anything out there without trying it. So remember I said I waxed my sister.
Mm-hmm.
So I put the kit together, and having never waxed before, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this and let's see how our clients would, And it was great. I'm like, our products are awesome. When you're using a high grade quality product like we do at Fuzz, and you have the equipment and tools, I mean, if you're gonna do it, I at least want you to do it with us. I think that was the mentality. So I know if you want to wax, you're gonna go to Shoppers and you're gonna pick off the shelf whatever you can find. But why not buy that experience to the best of our ability? And we've always prided ourselves on being educators. So we created a really tight system for these wax kits. I mean, it all came together really quick, but I gotta say, they're flying. They are doing so good, and I'm so excited for our clients that are taking the plunge to try this at-home wax experience. But we are overwhelmed by the response, and I'm so grateful, and it's doing so well. So it was great. It was crazy at first, and I remember calling Flo. I was up at a cottage, and I was like, "This is usually how a lot of ideas happen." I was like, "We're doing it," and she's like, what are we doing, Jessie? And I'm like, wax kits. And she's like, okay, let's talk about it. They were and that's kind of how it happens, right? So we didn't put too much thought into it. And from the support with each other, a little of the back and forth, we made it happen overnight, which is really exciting. And now people are loving it. They're absolutely loving it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And there's other things too. So, pre-COVID, it was like experts in one thing, waxing. Post-COVID, I think there's a lot of opportunity to be experts in all things hair. So we've always, even if you're not waxing, we're going to educate you in whatever hair removal method that you're using. We pride ourselves on not being kind of really, it's not just waxing. If we know, we're going to support you during that. So we're developing a lot of really fun stuff behind the scenes right now. I'm really excited about it. I think COVID again has kind of inspired and kind of put a little bit of a flame under all these ideas that would probably have happened, but a little bit, further down the road than now.
So when you were talking about your own sort of personal development and soul searching and realizing that, any of this could go away at any time, I've been prepared for this since a small child, because my parents, my whole life, have been telling me this could all go away any minute. So they finally came up. That was a lot funnier in my head. In reality, tell me, Jessie, what kind of are the plans post-COVID? Like, what are you guys like thinking? You mentioned that you were at sort of the peak of growth. Do you expect things are going to go back to normal? Like, where's your head at? We've talked a lot about, looking back, looking forward.
Yeah. So again, the same goals we had definitely are the same goals that we have moving forward. There's obviously been a little bit of a shake and a little bit of a shimmy, and we've had to kind of compensate where things are a little funky. But COVID also, like, you got to remember, as a wax bar, we were always ultra sanitized. Our level of sanitation has always been kind of really top notch. And on top of that, our model and what we're kind of asked and wanting to do when we reopen, it kind of complements the model in terms of fast, efficient, in and out experience. We've always been, paperless and touchless, and our memberships allow our clients to walk in and walk out, so there's no interaction there. So there's a lot of things that this is doing to kind of put hyper focus on a very high performing model that we already had. That said, the goals that we have right before this were obviously to start scaling. So global expansion was where we were kind of headed pre-COVID. And with the travel restrictions, we're probably going to focus a little bit more on Canada, with the intent to go into the States when it's safe, of course. And then bringing good quality franchisees into the system and kind of starting to grow the franchise community for sure, alongside obviously all of these really innovative, fun ideas that we have brewing in the back that are coming into fruition after all this time.
So for I've got like maybe one or two more questions, and I'm going to give you your day back. But in the history of Fuzz, your brand has been a bit of a media darling. You've done hundreds of interviews. You're all over the place on the internet. Could you say this was probably the best interview you've ever done?
Okay, and I think you're gonna think I'm just saying this. You have such a calming energy. Usually I get like, I remember when I started this because I was like, oh, I've never done this podcast, but this has been so relaxed, and it's actually a different type of interview than I've ever done. I know you've seen a lot of this is just like, it's just a conversation, which I really like.
I've seen them all. I have got TVs in every room in my house, just constantly looping your interviews from all the various outlets, and it's like when you see like an episode of Seinfeld that you're like, oh, and like I'll walk through and I'll remember that this was the clip, and I'll stop for a minute, watch about a few seconds, and then go back to what I was doing. So you've helped me personally get through the last few weeks, so I'm very grateful in that respect.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So hey, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have?
Oh my gosh. Like, I'm also one of those like blackouts. Like, I do an interview and then I'll go out of here and I'll be like, okay, so what did I say? How did I say it? No, I think we covered a lot of really great stuff. And what I was going to say though, is I didn't answer you. This has by far been my favorite interview.
There you go. I appreciate that.
I really genuinely mean that. No, I mean, I feel like I did all the talking. I'm like, I have access to you. I'm going to pick your brain after this. I'm like, I want to interview you next.
Oh, well, we could do that next week.
And so like, I feel like I've over talked a little bit, but.
No, the spotlight is supposed to be on you. So, speaking of spotlights, tell people, how can they get a membership? Where do they go to learn more about Fuzz? I'll put the URL back up here, but please pitch your business to at least like 25 people right now.
So obviously the best way to support, because our doors are not reopened yet, is through online. So visit us at fuzzwaxbar.com. And if you heard about our wax kits and you're daring enough to take the plunge and do a little at-home wax session, that's where you can purchase them, along with tons of other pre and post wax care products that we have. And then obviously follow us on social. We're obviously keeping up to date with, tips and tricks on how to utilize your at-home wax kits and how to maintain even if it's basic maintenance. I mean, even if you're not waxing, and even if you're just trying to maintain your hair and keep your hair, there's a lot of good stuff there. So follow us on Instagram, Fuzz Wax Bar, at Fuzz Wax Bar, or check us out online.
Awesome. And as for me, people, thank you guys so much for, following along on this Facebook Live. This is the first time we've done it. I'm very happy with how it came out. We'll do more of these. If you have only listened to a part of this, or you want to hear the whole conversation again, I will be putting it through as a podcast. So you'll be able to take Jessie anywhere you have ears, which will be that's a good thing. To find out more about the podcast, if you want to hear this conversation or about 40 other ones, you can go to soltalks.com. And if you want more information on me, of course, go to the Idea Integration Company. Thank you, Jessie, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to all the people who paid attention to this. I'm grateful, and we will do many more of these. So ending the broadcast now.